Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our council meeting for November 17th, 2020. Before we begin this meeting, I just want to address our Emergency Management Advisory Committee meeting that we had just before Town Council here this afternoon. The Emergency Management Advisory Committee of Council met with our Emergency Coordination Center to talk about COVID-19 here in the province, as well as in the region and here locally. As a part of that discussion, it was recommended and advised that the ECC felt necessary to move our community into a medium risk category, instituting our temporary mandatory face coverings bylaw. Council fully supports that move based on case counts here in the region. Also to deal with the hospital capacity issues that we have here in Alberta. As we know, the provincial government announced a number of measures to curb the spread here just last week. And as a part of that, we felt necessary to take some action here locally. We know that a number of individuals are not going to be happy about this, but this is about protecting our community as a whole, our most vulnerable populations. We're in a unique situation here in Edson because we have a number of seniors that are going to be moving from one facility to another here very, very shortly. And at the most critical stage of COVID-19, those are the people we need to protect the most. We also have a lot of intermunicipal travel between communities in our region that have a high amount of cases throughout this region. So that mandatory mask bylaw will go into effect starting tomorrow. We will be focused on education. We don't anticipate having to write tickets, but if people are not following the bylaws, that is an option available to our peace officers as well as the RCMP. We do thank all those that are going to cooperate and follow this advice in an effort to curb the spread and protect our community. We do have Light Up this Thursday, and we certainly hope people do support our local businesses, but take the necessary precautions. So I do know Council is fully in support of the measures that are being taken. And hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll see numbers continue to decline in the province or start to decline in the province. And it will be reviewed in 2 weeks on whether or not that mask bylaw will be extended. So I thank everybody for being kind to one another and continuing to work together. This is working together to prevent the spread and protect our communities. So with that, I will call for a motion to accept the agenda for the November 17th, 2020 regular meeting of Council with the addition of N1, a personnel matter. Councillor Chouinard will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please? The minutes of the November 3rd, 2020 regular meeting of Council be adopted as presented. Councillor Wilkinson will make that motion. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. We have no public hearings tonight, but we do have a delegation from the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers. Kelly McTaggart going to be joining us online here. And there we see Kelly. Can you hear us, Kelly?
I can. Hi, everyone.
Hi, welcome. And you can start with your presentation.
Perfect. I will share my screen. Go back. Okay, can everyone see that? I'm assuming that's a yes. Okay, I'm gonna get started. So thank you so much for having me. Sorry that I couldn't be there in person. These are the times that we're in, but hopefully everybody's staying safe in your neck of the woods. So I'll jump right into things and I'll try and keep this to about 10 to 15 minutes because I know your time is precious. So just a quick overview on CAPP. We are the largest industry association in Canada, and we represent small and large producing companies across Canada. So from coast to coast, Newfoundland to British Columbia. And our members produce about 80% of Canada's natural gas and crude oil in the country. In addition to that, we have a wide range of associate members who provide services to the industry across Canada. And I did want to touch on kind of the 3 early COVID priorities that CAPP had at the beginning. So starting in March and really working through these 3 priorities until, about June, July. And those were liquidity, so finding access to capital for our producers to keep them active and operating, red tape reduction, so working to mobilize at different levels of government to ensure that the industry was moving forward and we were still seeing capital investment come into the market, as well as protecting our essential workers. And this, as you're aware, it's great to hear that you're implementing a mask bylaw, but this was really a priority early on for the industry because COVID has been a you don't know what you don't know type of situation. This is an unprecedented time that we're in. And so keeping our essential workers safe and making sure there was no infection rate so that we could, provide our product to keep hospitals, emergency services, et cetera, running was a very big part of our priorities. And things have shifted a little bit. We've focused on those, and now we're moving into an economic recovery stage. So in that sense, I will begin to set the stage for that. So in terms of economic impacts of the industry to Canada, I did want to, provide the latest stats. These are our 2019 numbers. Of course, the oil and natural gas industry is the largest single private investor in Canada, and we provide about 6.1% to the GDP. And this equates to about $8 billion a year. We're still waiting for our 2019 numbers, but the average from 2016 to 2018 was $8 billion. And I did want to provide this visual and just a quick note that the total primary energy demand is set to drop by about 6% in 2020. We've actually already seen that figure. And this is the largest relative decline in 70 years and the biggest ever decline in absolute terms. So what that means is that the effect to the global economy is larger than, the Spanish flu, Great Depression, World War II, et cetera. Because we live in a much more global environment, we don't feel this shock wave quite as much because our supply chains are so secure. But it is extremely significant in terms of kind of our economic outlook and forecast. And this just shows our global energy demand forecasted recovery. So, just the visual on this really illustrates a very deep decline in 2020. In terms of figures, we were forecasted to have over $80 billion worth of capital investment this year. And we are looking at about less than half that by the end of 2019 or 2020, sorry, not to confuse my years, we're in 2020. And so our forecast, which is always a really important place to start and to kind of paint the picture is that, we are still committed to the Paris Climate Agreement. I think one interesting change that's happened just in the last couple of weeks is that with Joe Biden moving into office in the United States, they will also rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement. And within that framework, this is the forecast from 2018 to 2040 in terms of energy mix. And so when you look at that green column in the middle, that shows the total renewables that are contributing to the global demand. And this actually shows a 400% increase between 2018 and 2040. So largest growth space, natural gas is close behind. But my point being is that as important as renewables are, they will not outpace other forms of energy before 2040. Natural gas, as I said, it is very close behind in terms of increase, and it will soon become, after 2040, the leading energy source, globally speaking. And there's lots of reasons for that. The developing countries such as China and India are looking for more secure energy sources. Their population continues to grow. Whereas, Europe is moving more into the renewable space. They have very emission-friendly transportation networks. We're seeing declines in those spaces in terms of fossil fuel products. but the developing world is really where this is a growing space. So in terms of CAPP's outlook, we've had quite a few challenges since 2014, 2015, when we saw the first recession. And we've seen a steady decline on capital investment from an international perspective, especially from the United States. So the United States used to be our number one customer. They're now our number one competitor. And it's been this way for the past 5 years. Again, we may see a bit of a change. I think there's lots of attention being paid to what the US election means for the Canadian markets. So in addition to them rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement, we're also going to see more methane and carbon legislation come in terms of an emissions point of view. So this will mean that, kind of the gung-ho regulatory free kind of environment that these big producers international producers have been focusing on in the States, we're going to see them shy away from that. So this may be a good news story for Canada. Let's move on. So in terms of priorities, so as I said, we had the three main priorities at the beginning of the year. So really from March to June, and that was kind of keeping the industry going and focusing on safety. Now we're moving into Canada's economic recovery. And, we have been working in tandem with the speech from the throne and some of the commitments that have come out of that, and trying to position Canada's recovery as one that is, friendly and focused on environmental innovation, but also focuses on growing oil and natural gas at home. So the four elements of this are, of course, creating and retaining good jobs in Canada, looking at benefits and prosperity for Indigenous communities, advancing environmental leadership, and building wealth and value while shrinking Canada's debt. And a big part of this is that we've seen an increase in the debt to export ratio. So we really need to focus on exports over the next decade to ensure that we're growing our economy in a sustainable way. And one model that we're looking at quite closely, especially since this is relevant for the last kind of half year, is Norway. So when we look at the environmental space, Canada is one of the only producing countries of the top 10 producers that has environmental standards. Norway is not a top 10 producer, just in terms of quantity, but they do have very stringent environmental regulations. And just in the past year, they've really reframed their regulatory framework to ensure that their capital investment is moving into the country. And we have seen an increase in drilling larger than we have in the past 2 decades in Norway because of this legislation. So we're looking at Norway as a potential blueprint to put forward to the federal government. They've had great success in competing for investment, and that's where we need to be as well. Another interesting thing that has come up is that CAPP always does third-party polling because it's important to align where the industry is going in terms of ESG priorities with the values and priorities of Canadians. For the first time ever, environment has not actually landed in the top 5 priorities of Canadians. And this is because there's so much economic recovery concern. So on the right-hand side, you'll see the top 5 priorities for a Canadian. And, healthcare always lands in the top 3. And that's actually, the only one that is consistently up there. The rest kind of fluctuate in the top 10. So that's pretty interesting. And then on the left-hand side, so this 61%, this is the first time in a couple decades, actually, that this figure has gotten over 60%. So we're seeing approval of the industry and support for the industry in numbers that we haven't seen for quite some time. Of course, this takes a while to translate into actual action, investment, advocacy. But it is an interesting take on, what Canadians are looking at right now. Usually that figure hovers around 58, 59%. So the good news, because it's always important to land on that, I did want to highlight just a couple of things and a few of the priorities that we're working on right now. So there are 4 major pipeline projects in construction right now. The 4th one, which isn't noted on this map, is TC Energy's Coastal GasLink project, which is part of LNG Canada. But the other 3 projects here are all ironically in construction. So after many years of long drawn out regulatory processes, we have seen these as excellent employers, for Canadians during this time. The furthest along is Enbridge Line 3. The Canadian portion of this project is complete. And of course, Trans Mountain is quite close to you. Well, part of it is. So I'm sure that you've seen construction on that project happening. And then TC's Keystone XL, which is probably the most looked at right now just because of the election, is also moving forward. So, where TC's at with that is that they've really looked for additional capital to build as much as they can before January. Whether or not President Biden decides to, continue to make this a political issue remains to be seen, but they will likely be at a point of no return prior to the inauguration. I think that's what the hope is right now. And also, just because a campaign issue is a campaign issue, it doesn't necessarily translate into priorities of an office. So they seem to be very optimistic with the outcome of that project. So we'll see how that pans out. And so this is just a summary of some of the things I've talked about. The other kind of main policy piece that we're looking at is the clean fuel standard. So, this is kind of under the radar right now, but we are expecting this to take off. It's a federal piece of policy, but we're expecting just as much attention to be paid to this as Bill C-69. So, additional regulations on fuel standards in Canada. This will have huge effects for the agricultural sector, oil and gas, basically any industry that uses large amounts of fuel. And, CAPP is supportive of the clean fuel standard. We've seen it work in other countries or other jurisdictions from a gas side. We have never seen a standard implemented on a liquid side. So there's changes that need to be made to continue to make us competitive and also friendly to multiple industries across Canada. So I wanted to flag that because it's early days, but it's something to start paying attention to, especially come January when some of the consultation phases, especially the technical reviews, start to come up from that policy. And I think I'll leave it at that. Of course, additional information is always available on Context. We've been updating this every day with news stories, infographics, a lot more detail on some of the market forecasts and things that are happening more regionally. And of course, happy to answer any questions.
All right, well, thank you so much, Kelly, for your presentation here this evening. I'll open the floor to questions if council has any questions that they'd like to ask. Oh, all right, Councillor Bevan, take her away.
Through the chair to Kelly. I seen here a couple of days ago that on the news they said that the Enbridge Line 3 project was put on hold by the governor of that state. Is that true?
Yeah, so Enbridge is facing some issues in Michigan right now. They've had their permitting go through Minnesota, which was a prior challenge. But they are facing a number of challenges with the state of Michigan. I think this is something that they've been focusing on for the past couple of years. They've had some environmental hurdles that they've need to get over. But I think the messaging that I've seen this week from Enbridge is that these are hurdles that they're able to get past. So they're optimistic on that. And, the point of no return on some of these projects does count for a lot. I mean, a large portion of that pipeline is already built in the United States. I think just to take it over the finish line and get things into service is the challenge. There's also, just on that front too, which has been in the news this week, is Enbridge Line 5, which runs from Southern Ontario into Michigan, as well as facing some scrutiny. And I think there's a lot of pressure from ENGO groups on the state, on the governor, on these pipelines. It's a political issue. They're seeing a change of office. This is a very timely opportunity to make some noise on some of these things. But, for example, this pipeline, Line 5, has been in service since 1953. And it's incident free, and we're going to start seeing oil being shipped by rail and across the Great Lakes. So, it's just one of those things where pipelines are often the best answer, but there seems to be some blissful ignorance, I guess, to some of these issues.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? All right, Kelly, well, thank you so much for your presentation. Before I leave you, I just want to pass on that we've been very active here with what's going on with TMX as well as TC Energy projects, and both TC Energy and TMX have been really excellent community partners throughout this process. So I just wanted to pass that on to you as you're having your discussions. We appreciate the work that's been done and supporting our local communities.
That's great. That's really good feedback, and I'm happy to hear it, and also happy to see everybody safe and sound, and we'll be in touch soon.
All right, thanks, Kelly.
Okay, thanks so much. Take care.
All right, before we move on to the next item, there was I believe some commentary online that we're not wearing masks here this evening. I just want to point out that we are in a council chamber with shields. That may not be visible on the cameras, but we do have plexiglass shields between all of us. We also maintain 6 feet of distance. We also wear masks as soon as we leave this table and in and out of this building, which has been the procedure for a while now. We all have masks here. I don't know where I put mine. Mine's in my pocket here. So just to clarify that, and we will be adhering by all the rules and the regulations. But as per the bylaw, we do have barriers in place, and as such, and this is not open to the public right now either. So, and our staff are also masked up in the back. Moving on, we will go to a motion. Can I get a motion, please? The council write off the uncollectible accounts as listed in the attached document. Councillor Bevan will make that motion, and we do have our manager of corporate services here, our general manager of corporate services, Sarah Bittner. Go ahead. I wanted to call you interim CAO, but you're not that yet.
Not quite.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah.
We told you we'd get you back. Go ahead, Sarah, if you want to speak to this.
This was just brought to committee last week. There's been no changes since then, so there's not really much else to discuss from our point of view here.
All right. Any questions, council? Here none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council consent to a temporary 2-year variance to the Edson and District Recycling Society lease, allowing them to partner with the Edson Friendship Center to build and operate homeless shelter pods on the town of Edson property occupied by EDRS. Councillor Sorensen will make that motion. And we have our General Manager of Protective and Community Services, Guy Latour, with us. We did discuss this at committee last week. Anything you want to add, Mr. Latour?
Through the chair to council, the report's in front of you, and I'm just open for questions.
All right. Councillor Chenard?
The one-time grant, 64,000.
We're not there yet. That's the next motion.
Then I'll retract that question, mask up.
All right. Go ahead, Councillor Wilkinson.
Through the chair, I'm just wondering why it's a temporary 2-year variance rather than just ongoing.
Through the chair to council, the direction I felt we received from council was that we would take a look at this as a pilot project and review it. This would put us in a position after 2 years that we would come back and either ask for an extension on that lease or that we permanently change the lease to allow that. But this is a temporary extension for that lease.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Mr. Derrick.
Thank you. If I just may add to that as well, it is the intention for the development permit process to also mirror this with a 2-year temporary development permit. So that would be in line with that action as well.
Thank you. Councillor Byer.
Thanks. Through the chair to administration, I'm appreciative of the 2-year variance that you've indicated here. I feel that if there's any major issues that we get from residents, or administratively anything that we may not foresee over the next 2 years, that we're able to just revisit this and have a healthy discussion and give it the proper feedback that it would deserve.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? As discussed at committee, very pleased to see this partnership happening in our community and more than happy to support this. I know speaking with, or in discussion with Ms. Oriat at the recycling depot, they're very excited about this project, and she was very hopeful that they would get a written response from us, which will be forthcoming after this motion. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. Can I get a motion, please, that council approve a one-time grant of $64,000 to the partnership EDRS and Edson Friendship Center for the Shelter Pod project, such grant to be an FCSS grant funded from the COVID-19 Emergency Reserve and requiring the appropriate FCSS conditions and reporting and outcome measurements that accompany an FCSS grant. Councillor Curry will make that motion. Council, you have any questions? Councillor Chenard.
Now I can ask the question. Is the 64,000, it's a grant, is there any restrictions on what they can use the money for?
Through the chair to council, it'll be a grant for this project that they presented, but it's without conditions in the sense that it's specific to this project. So we didn't want to, like we talked about before, they can use it for construction the first year for operation. They will get this grant and then they'll use it to move this project forward.
Okay, yeah.
My apologies. But the 64,000 was based on the request of their construction costs to do that. Yeah.
To do all of them?
Go ahead.
So if because they said they were applying for grants, so we give them the 64,000. So let's say they get 30,000 in grants, they can put the money in the bank for operating for later if needed?
Through the chair to council, that would be correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Byer.
Through the chair to administration and council. I remember hearing a few years ago that the stats on Vancouver's homeless numbers, and then remember doing quick math at the time that Edson numbers per capita or percentage were higher, and I revisited that today. I did a quick Google search and used the best sources that I could based on Vancouver's homeless numbers, Edmonton's and Edson's, and their current populations that were available. And it turned out that, this may not be official because I know we haven't officially counted our homeless population, but I based ours on 60 homeless people in our community. And in Edmonton, the homeless population was 0.18%. Vancouver's was 0.31%, and Edson's was 0.71%. So we were over twice as much percentage over Vancouver and 3 to 4 times high as Edmonton, just based on our numbers. So when we talked to the MLAs and realized that we don't get funding for homelessness, but yet our percentages, based on just a quick Google search, it wasn't, super high tech, but the base information should be correct, right? That we have a higher percentage than the cities, and yet we don't receive funding for them. So I thought that was interesting to note.
Go ahead, Ms. Latour.
Through the chair to council, those are very rough numbers.
Yes.
And as you indicated already, we were in the process, the community and the task force, of setting up an official process to quantify and actually come up with quantifiable statistics for homeless. So those are very, 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 very rough numbers based on some estimates.
Right.
All right, Councillor
Yes.
Wilkinson.
Through the chair, yes, I'd like to get those as proper statistics, because if you've ever been on Hastings Street in Vancouver, I just can't really see that it's applicable.
All right, and just to that point, the homelessness count that was supposed to occur happened right at the start of COVID. Unfortunately, got canceled. Hopefully, things ease up. We'll be able to do that. One of the big concerns is that there's a high possibility of transmission of COVID within that population. So, which is one of the reasons why we're funding this through the COVID reserve. Any other questions? Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair, just to a general comment, I appreciate admin's wording of this motion. I think it was excellently worded, and I just want to comment that I think this is an excellent use of our reserve, our COVID emergency reserve. it's going to have a lasting legacy in our community, and it's going to make a significant improvement in the services that we can, or our nonprofit organizations can provide. So, and I think it's an excellent group of organizations that are making this happen. So I'm very, I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, as mentioned, I am in full support of this. The really great thing is having Alberta Health Services at the table on this, and this is going to be something that can benefit our community year round. As council is aware and our community is aware, unfortunately, homeless individual just been identified as somebody that passed away in our community after being found in a place where they're trying to find shelter. So I think this is really great because we've been talking a lot, as Councillor Devon mentioned last meeting, about this, and now we actually have something that we can do to help this community. So, and the partnership is fantastic. And I know that from a task force perspective, with Councillor Wilkinson and Byer and I that we're on, that's one of the things that we've often talked about is working together to find solutions. And this was an out-of-the-box thinking, and I absolutely love it. So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. We have no information items. Can I get a motion, please, the council direct administration to bring back options to show appreciation to our employees for the contributions in 2020 to address the COVID-19 pandemic with limited financial impact to taxpayers? Councillor Bauer make that motion, and because this is my notice of motion, I'll quickly speak to it. As we're all aware, we had to make some pretty tough choices earlier on this year in relation to COVID. Our employees have done very well to serve this community, took financial impacts and other impacts throughout this pandemic. Moving forward in 2020, I think it's important that we recognize that. I really would like to see this focused on our union employees. All of our employees have contributed significantly to this. As everybody is aware, we did pass the out-of-scope policy here just a week ago, and while that's not directly related, our out-of-scope and management will be getting benefit from that. I hope that this will provide some benefit to our union employees, whatever is brought forward from administration, in order to show our appreciation for the efforts that they've made. And one of the key things is they did it with absolute professionalism and grace. I know it wasn't easy during that time, and yeah, so open the floor to any questions, comments, or concerns. Councillor Chouinard.
So what are we looking for though? Because I do see the thing as an example of what we're doing, appreciating them, because they did all accept it, and you know, under the circumstances, but I'm a little bit concerned on what exactly we're looking for to appreciate them with.
Well, that's what we've asked administration to come back with some ideas on the best way forward and to show that appreciation. I've made a suggestion in there that maybe a few wellness days that they could take in the summer or something to that effect, which would have minimal impact to our budgetary process and also be able to show some appreciation. So, Councillor Sorensen.
Through the chair to council, I believe this is a great motion. I'm in full support. I also believe that it should focus on union staff. However, I'm quite open to other ideas, and I think you made a great motion, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Councillor Byron.
Through the chair to council and administration. I know other employers I've had when times were tough and areas had to maybe take cutbacks or not move ahead as well as they thought they would have. When the times got better, they were shown appreciation in various ways, sometimes with jackets or other items, which definitely have a financial impact. But I think that your suggestion there was great, and I'd be interested to hear what the staff feel would be a decent appreciation from them as well. So I think that's great. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Curry.
I would just echo through the chair. I would just echo my support too. I would love to see some ideas, and I agree with the motion, Mayor. I think our staff was fantastic about taking it and doing the 0.9 and doing a phenomenal job of it. I think most of the community did say they didn't see a huge lack in service. They did a really good job. So I think it is definitely needed, that we show our appreciation. And I like the ideas here, but I'm also curious to see what admin comes back with.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Motion carried. We have no sundry items. Council committee reports, we're gonna go back to November the 4th. And we will start today with Councillor Wilkinson.
All right, November 4th, I had our video conference. We're doing a 360 evaluation on our CAO. So we have to get all the participants in place, the questions in place. It's quite a process, really. And as chair, I'm representing the board along with Paul Butler, who's the vice chair from Jasper. On the 10th, in between our meetings here, I went over to a little dinner they had at Parkland Lodge to thank the fundraisers for the money that they raised toward the furniture in Parkland Lodge. On the November 16th, I had another evaluation about our CAO evaluation. So that's what I've been kept busy with.
All right, thank you. Councillor Byer.
Thanks. On November 10th, I had the committee of the whole meeting, and earlier today, the November 17th, the Emergency Management Advisory Committee meeting.
All right, thank you. Councillor Chouinard.
November 10th, I had committee of the whole, and on Friday the 13th, we had our Trans-Canada Zoom. A lot of our highlights were due to COVID. It's hard to have meetings, and we're trying to recruit other large cities and partners, but through difficulties of COVID, it's not ending well for us, as well as I had our emergency management meeting before tonight's meeting.
All right, Councillor Curry.
I also had the committee of the whole on the 10th, and then today the emergency management advisory committee.
Councillor Devon.
Same thing on the 10th committee meeting, and today Emergency Management Advisory Committee meeting too.
All right, Councillor Sorensen.
All right, on November 10th, I had it's in a District Chamber of Commerce meeting. The majority of the meeting, I'd like to say, was about the parade. It will be a stationary parade, a drive-by parade. And I'm sure more details will be released soon on social media and in the regular media. Just a few dates to note: November 19th, late night shopping; December 3rd, night owl; and December 4th will be the Santa parade. That same day, I had a committee of the whole meeting, and earlier today, the Emergency Management Advisory Committee meeting. Thank you.
All right, and for me, committee of the whole on the 10th, had the Emergency Management Advisory Committee meeting today, and been on the phone quite a bit with our MLA about provincial regulations and all the fun stuff related to COVID. So on that, we will move on to the next agenda item. Get back to the right screen here. We have no financial items. Questions from media and public regarding items from this council meeting? Anything direct? You can email civiccenter@edson.ca. Can I get a motion, please, to move into our closed meeting session? Councillor Bevan will make that motion. All those in favor? All right, thank you. Can I get a motion for adjournment? Councillor Curry will make that motion. All those in favor? Motion carried.
I'm gonna push the screen over.